906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. We'll check out a true UP landmark. We'll get the scoop on Lakenenland.
Wintertime, I'm down here usually on the weekends, keeping the fire going for snowmobilers and anybody wants to come through.
And we'll get up and close with some bears as part of a predator-prey study that took place a while back. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. "15 miles east of Marquette on M28, along Snowmobile Trail number 417, you'll find Lakenenland. Lakenenland is a park filled with hundreds of scrap metal sculptures, all built by Tom Lakenen. I spent some time sitting around the bonfire with Tom to see if I could find out why.
Welcome to Lakenenland. My name is Tom Lakenen, and I guess I'm the creator of this place. Wintertime, I'm down here usually on the weekends with a bonfire and coffee and hot chocolate and keeping the fire going for snowmobilers and hikers and skiers. Anybody wants to come through. The place is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anybody wants to come out anytime. Wintertime, you don't really even need a skis or a snowmobile. The groomer goes through, and with all the snowmobiles, it's hard packed and easy walking. I made a trail through here and had about 40 or 50 sculptures in my yard that I moved down here. And it was deer season that year. We didn't have any tracking snow for deer hunting, so I really didn't get too enthused about deer hunting. So I came down here and built a little lean-to shelter here for snowmobilers. And it was just kind of a temporary shelter in 2003, and here it is 14 years later, still the same shelter. The blocks the north wind. I got that little wood stove there and use that for the coffee and hot chocolate. And hell, it can be 20 below zero, and it's pretty comfortable here by the shelter with the wood fire going. Got a little past the oven by the stovepipe. That was new about 2 years ago, and I had to put a new wood stove in. The other one finally seen its better days, and that turned into part of a sculpture now. Everything out here is just made out of junk that was getting thrown away. Even the lean-to itself, that was made out of some rubber roofing off of, I think, the school down in Munising. Rather than going to the junkyard, take it home and build something out of it. There we go. First started this that first winter of 2003, 2004, and you get snowmobiles that drive by and they'd see the coffee pots on the wood stove, and they kind of slow down and look and kind of a little leery to stop. And I heard later that their first trip through, they thought I was some hermit living out in the woods, and coming up from Chicago and wherever, they just think people backwoods up here in the UP, and that's the way we live. But some of them kind of surprised to actually find out I had a real house with indoor plumbing and electricity and all. And this is just here for anybody who wants to use it. Yeah, the wintertime on a busy weekend when the trails are good, there's days when you get 200 snowmobiles in one day that'll drive through here. Summertime, not quite so busy, but the snowmobilers really seem to like it. I don't think they're really coming to see the sculptures. I think it's a warm fire, but hey, whatever it takes. I'll come down here during the week to blow the snow off everything, and there's already guys here that got the fire going and cooking hot dogs or whatever they want to use the place for. You get people from pretty much all over the United States. I never realized the UP was such a snowmobile paradise till I started this. Thought everybody could snowmobile right out their back door, and then you start this and there's people coming up from all over the United States and different country around the world. They come over visiting, people bring them up here snowmobiling. So I guess we're pretty fortunate to have a snowmobile trail system like we got and conditions that we do. Yeah, it makes the winter a lot of fun. I'd rather be here in the snowbank than out in Hawaii right now, to be honest with you, so I enjoy it.
"906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven, your source for premier power sports products.
So I've always worked construction as a welder. I'm in the Boilermakers Union. And whenever I'm laid off, I'll just throw some scrap in the garage and make something. Started about 20 years ago. I quit drinking, needed something to do to keep out of the tavern. And this is kind of a better habit, I guess. Got about close to 100 crazy metal sculptures scattered out in the woods here. It's all made out of scrap I get off of construction jobs, and whenever I'm laid off, throw something in the garage and see what I can make out of it. tell a lot of people when they look at this weird stuff, where do I get the ideas? And I just tell them I'm recreating the things I used to see when I was drinking. So the stand-up boat, I had Indian fisherman, and he gave me that boat. And I stood that up and put the shelves in it and cleaned out a bunch of junk out of my garage. And the coolest thing in there, it's called the rigger's vise. It's used for making steel chokers for working construction. And that was actually used when they built the Mackinac Bridge to make all their rigging. The musicians are all made out of a bunch of chain that came out of Louisiana Pacific wafer board mill down in Sagola. That was the conveyor chain that hauled all the logs up into the mill. The big owl up in the nest is another favorite one for a lot of people. That was made out of some pipe fittings that came out of stone container up in Ontonagon, all stainless steel. Same with this Indian and Buffalo one. Indian's made right out of the side of a stainless 20-inch pipe elbow. The one fitting was worth about $960, and I got a whole truck and trailer load for 2 cases of beer and a bottle of whiskey, so I guess that works out pretty good. There's 2 Wildcat hockey players that are made out of expansion joints on the main steam line from out at Northern Michigan University. There's a memorial sculpture over here I built for my dad 2 years ago. Him and the guy that runs all the work on the ore dock in the Upper Harbor in Marquette, his son died of cancer, and so did my dad, so I made kind of a memorial sculpture out of that. Pink elephant's kind of a big favorite for a lot of kids that come out here. I made that for my daughter. Then when I started this park, she wanted to keep that in the yard, so I had to make her a swing set in order to trade to get the elephant down here. There'd be kids out here playing for hours on that big pink elephant. The sled dog sculpture kind of had a bunch of stuff that it was easy to make some little dogs that looked like sled dogs, so kind of ended up with a UP 200 sled dog sculpture. The lumberjacks is another favorite one. That was the most time-consuming one. I got 3 lumberjacks, and to try to get them guys where they're all look like they're working together and the right length arm and legs to where they all matched. I had about 6 months into building them. Then we're actually cutting some Lombardy popple that were down along Lakeshore Boulevard that died 10 years ago that the city cut down. I built the Marine Corps sculpture around 2005 maybe. My nephew Jake Johnson, him and 4 or 5 of his buddies all went in the Marine Corps, and they had 2 or 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they all survived, so I figured I'd make them a Marine Corps sculpture. Thanks to all them guys. Mining sculpture that you see, that was an old log sauna and a bunch of old parts and pieces of junk I got all around the area here with all the mining history in the UP. Figured I'd make something to do with some mining, so kind of made it look like an old 1800s mine type area. The actual mine cabin was an old sauna that came from down by Rumley. The head frame was a power line tower from up in Negaunee. The winch came out of the Ellis&I building where the Lower Harbor apartments are now. All the ore cars I made out of the dust collector hoppers that came out of the Tilden mine. Part of the wheels came off the ore dock in the Upper Harbor. Crane boom came from Unit Crane down in Milwaukee. Yeah, just parts and pieces anywhere I can get it. I finally made a Boilermaker sculpture for out here. I got the pipe fitter one and the iron worker one. My dad and brother's iron workers, and I'm kind of the oddball out of the family, and all my Boilermaker buddies are like, why don't you have a Boilermaker sculpture? So finally got some tube panels from the powerhouse in Hibbing, Minnesota there last year, and a bunch of old chain falls and come-alongs that I've gotten from Jamar or Pentecost Construction over the years, and kind of made a Boilermaker sculpture. Another one I made there just this year was oil and water sculpture. Working out in Wyoming and see all them pump jacks pumping oil out there, and I thought them are kind of neat. I'd like to make one of them someday, so I came home and built that one, and I didn't really know what to put with it, and I had an old windmill, so I stuck that with it and kind of made with all the fracking and oil and water and controversy and people fighting over that like anything else. So I made a kind of an oil and water sculpture that kind of gets the point across, I guess. Yeah, the snowmobile, after I started this, and you get so many snowmobiles coming through, I thought, well, hell, I'll go home and build a snowmobile. The track on that was an old bulldozer track. That was actually a fire pit in my backyard. And then when I started thinking, how the hell am I going to make a snowmobile? Well, I threw that fire pit in my garage, and next thing you know, there's a snowmobile. There wasn't actually a real seat off of a skidoo. The frame was little columns off a small metal building. I got that bulldozer track for the track on it. And then the cowl's made out of just a bunch of the bent wear plate that came off the ore dock. and a bunch of oddball pieces I got off a different job. Who knows what it is. So. Snowmobilers really seem to like that snowmobile. That's the most photographed thing out here in the wintertime. People always climbing on that and taking their picture.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom.
There's a pavilion out there now I built a couple years ago. I had a $12,000 donation from a Dr. Ken Beeren in Marquette. And I got a little band shell, so summertime there's local musicians that come down and play, usually on Sunday afternoons, and once in a while a music festival. A couple ponds out there, usually stock some fish in there for kids, anybody wants to go fishing in the summertime. There's a group in Marquette, the South Shore Fishing Association. Every year they have a kids fishing tournament, usually about Father's Day weekend, open to any kids in the area want to come down and fish. Being right on the snowmobile trail here, they come right through with the groomer for me, and snowmobilers can ride their snowmobiles right through the park. It's about a half-mile loop. A lot of times on the weekends I got a canoe that I drag behind the snowmobile if there's kids around, and give the kids a ride in the canoe through there. Yeah, snowmobilers seem to like it. A lot of them come back again after being here a year or two previous and see what's new. Sometimes in the winter you'll end up with a school bus pull in with 50 kids that come out, and I usually like to get a little heads up on that because it makes sure there's a fire going if it's during the week, and come down with the canoe and drag them around, and they're cooking marshmallows and stuff. And a lot of times the end of the year around May and stuff, you'll see I'll be down here doing something and you see a school bus pull in, and all of a sudden the whole place sounds like you're at the dump with a bunch of seagulls. I mean, the place just comes alive with kids running everywhere and hooting and hollering.
So why is it here? I think most of us probably have some unique passion tucked away, a passion to do something creative or different. If that's the case, then just do it. Don't wait for a reason, just do it.
You see the school bus pulling with all them kids, that makes it all worthwhile. And seeing people that come by on snowmobile and they come back again, so they must enjoy it. I didn't know when I started this if somebody's going to come through here and tip this stuff over or spray paint it, graffiti, or haul it off to the junkyard and cash it in. And it's been unreal. I come down here, I can take off and go to work for 3 months and come back, and everything's still the same. There's no garbage, no litter whatsoever. I mean, nothing destroyed. Grass needs to be cut, but that's about it. And I've been out here even in the summertime, and you'll have 2-3 cars backed up here to the fire pit with their trunk open and stereo blaring, and just tell them, hey, make sure the fire's out when you leave, and you come back the next day and you can't even tell they're here. So they leave that cabinet open all winter long with snacks and stuff in there, and nobody's ever messed with anything. I mean, a few snacks gone, people eat throughout the day when I'm not here, and that's what it's there for. And yeah, it's been pretty amazing how good the public's been out here.
Lakenenland is a result of someone's ideas, someone who found a way to express his creativity. And we get to enjoy it because he decided to share it with anyone interested. Not for any monetary reasons or notoriety, just because he can and he wants to. So if you're driving by, stop in and take a walk through the park. If you're heading down Trail 417 on a snowmobile, stop in. You're sure to find a warm fire, a hot cup of coffee, and Tom.
I've always liked camping and sitting around a bonfire, and you sit out here with the coffee pot going, and you get to talk to all these tourists from all over the place. You meet some pretty interesting people, and people seem to enjoy it. You see them going through with a big smile on their face, and especially the ones that come back again. They must like it if they come back again. Yeah, I just really enjoy it. It really makes the winter go by, and I got a good pile of scrap iron yet, and I still work construction for a living, and I'm always collecting more off of jobs. Try to make something new every year, but as far as this wintertime thing, this will be going on until I can't do it anymore. Hell, I'm only 54 now, so it'll be quite a while yet, hopefully. And in the summertime, you see a busload of kids pull in here and running around and laughing and smiling and having a good time. Definitely makes it all worthwhile. So.
.906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your hard water connection to Little Beatty Knock. The condition of our deer herd here in the Upper Peninsula is influenced by many factors, including weather, habitat, and of course, predation. Mississippi State University, along with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, have been studying the effects of predation on deer through an endeavor known as the Predator-Prey Project. Part of the project includes tagging and monitoring bears. I tagged along on a bear den check mission, which allowed the rare opportunity to get up and close with the sow and her cubs.
We're really trying to understand the interactions between these factors that can limit white-tailed deer populations. A lot of people want a simple answer. They want it to either be winter weather or wolves or coyotes. But the reality is that it's a complex ecological system, and there's important interactions between these factors. And that's what we're really trying to understand, how these factors relate to one another and how that impacts white-tailed deer. Because, of course, we want to do the best job we can managing white-tailed deer.
So when we catch the bear the previous summer, we're able to weigh them, and usually they'll put around 50 to 100 pounds on from summer to winter. So we'll mix up drugs so that we can immobilize her. And the whole time we're doing this, we're thinking about the bear's safety. So we really want to be as close to that bear's weight as possible. We don't want to underdose the bear and have her be more awake than we would like. And also we don't want to overdose the bear. We want to make sure that she stays out, and she'll stay out for about an hour while we're doing the workup. So when we approach the den, usually the bears are in a pretty good state of torpor. So they may lift their heads and look at us, but in this case today, she didn't lift her head at all. So she was out, and you could hear the cubs in there with her as well. Once she's out, we crawl in and see how many cubs she has. We try to take the cubs out first. Stick them in a warm jacket. Cubs don't thermoregulate as well, so we have to keep them as warm as possible. And even though today it's a nice day and it's 50 degrees, it's still important to keep those cubs warm. So once we get the cubs out, then we're able to crawl in, and now we can get her out safely.
1, 2, 3. Where's her other leg?
Sometimes this involves excavating a little bit so we can dig some of the dirt out. Lots of times when bears go into a den, they'll continue digging, and the opening will be much smaller than we're able to get a bear out of. So we have to remove some of the soil so that we're able to do that. First thing we want to do, again, thinking about the bear's safety, is we want to get her temperature, pulse, and respiration. And these are things that we monitor about every 10 minutes. And we just want to make sure that she's doing well while she's under sedation, while she's under that drug. In addition to having the collar that we can get movement data on and predation data and habitat data from, we're also taking morphometric measurements. So we're looking at chest girth and her feet length and ear length and head circumference. And these are interesting to be able to compare among populations, either locally or across the United States, just to see differences in bear body shape and size. And then also we draw blood, and blood can tell us a number of different things. So we can look at stress levels of the bear, and we can grab this from the blood, cortisol levels. And then we can see and compare between winters, how stressed is a bear? Is she more stressed when she has more cubs? Is she more stressed when a winter is much longer or more severe? So these are really interesting pieces of information that we can gain from going and checking on this bear. And we also have a collar on the bear, and we can follow her around. And what we're most interested in is looking at is fawn survival and see how many fawns that bear are taking. And so through using that collar, we can find areas where she spends a lot of time, what we call clusters. And we can go investigate those clusters, and we can look for fawn predations, and we do this using dogs in the summertime. And what den checks enable us to do is do an annual health check on the bear, but also once that battery gets used up, we can put a new collar on her. And we also want to weigh the cubs too. We want to see, you know, do sows that have multiple cubs, are they of the same weights, or do we have varying weights as well? Once we're all finished up with the workup and we feel confident that the bear is doing well, and then we want to get her back in the den so she can wake up safely with the cubs back nursing. We usually put a sleeping bag down, and you can lay her on her back and slide her back into their den. Their dens are usually bowl shaped. Just the bear. And it allows the bear to curl up right within those dens. Then we'll start putting the cubs back in, and as soon as we place the cubs back in, we put them right on her chest so they can begin nursing again. While the cubs are in the den, they stay awake the whole time, and they'll be nursing and growing and feeding and crawling around. Meanwhile, the sow stays in that hibernation or torpor state. So she doesn't actually get up and start moving around until the snow melts, even though the cubs are awake and feeding that whole time. And we put boughs back over it, and then if it snows, that snow will just cover her den right back up, and that way, you know, anything else that comes along isn't able to have that den totally exposed, and we don't have to worry about too much cold air getting in there as well.